What's your creepy mimic or skinwalker encounter experience? I think there may be some type of mimic in my house. Let me start by saying the house my family, myself, and my girlfriend live in has no shortage of paranormal activity. Literally, someone has something happen to them every day. A few months back, I was downstairs cleaning, and my father was in the next town over, running errands. I looked up from cleaning and saw something that looks just like my father walk down the stairs and into the bathroom. Fast forward to this week, my girlfriend was downstairs gathering some ammo for a range day, and I was upstairs. She heard my voice come from behind her say something unintelligible, followed by some whistling. The next night, my girlfriend and I were walking into the house and past the top of the stairs, where she froze. She saw my brother at the bottom of the stairs where our laundry machines are. At that time of night, he's usually in bed for work in the morning. We went straight to his room upstairs to double check, and there he was, asleep. What the flurbo is this thing? I've had plenty of experiences with the supernatural spanning my whole life, but I've never dealt with something that mimics people. This isn't the first paranormal encounter I've had, but it is only the second time someone was with me when something strange and inexplicable happened. We moved into the new house we're currently living in October of last year. I should mention, the house we came from also had its share of really creepy happenings, and there is one event that I feel is connected to what happened in the new house. I was home alone with my dog, reading on my bed. My parents at the time were remodeling their bathroom and had met with the man who would be doing the job at the home improvement store down the block to look at tiles. Now, this whole encounter is quick and over in a matter of seconds, if I'm going to be honest with you, but even now, years later, I struggle to get out with shaky hands on my keyboard. Before I get on with it, I just want to say, I was in near silence, meaning no music was playing, no TV. My laptop was off and charging. I was not on my phone, no headphones in, basically, I wasn't doing anything that would cause a noise, and seeing as I was home alone, the only source of a human voice would have been me. The only sound that could be heard was the sound of the AC. So, I was on my bed reading. My dog was downstairs, presumably napping since he was like 12 years old at the time. He's still kicking, he's 17, and has a heart condition that causes him to get tired easily. All of a sudden, I hear my mom's voice, greeting the dog like she always does when she comes home, and I mean exactly the way she does. Switching between English and Spanish, the same tone, everything. I stood up and stretched, but realized I hadn't heard the door open, so I approached the stairs and very confusedly called out to my mom. "Mom?" Silence, and then, my dog started screaming. I mean screaming as if he was being tortured, crying and whining, and I started calling out to him, scared out of my mind. I took the first step of the stairs down and immediately froze. Something felt so very wrong. I was flushed with this fear. I knew without a doubt that whatever greeted my dog was not my mom. Whatever it was, it literally froze me with fear. My dog finally came running up, zoomed right past me, into my room, headed into my bathroom and hid behind the toilet. Mind you, through tears and shaky hands, I did call my mom. I practically blew her phone up, but all I got was VM. That was the first time something like that had happened to me, and I knew I couldn't just explain it off and shelve it in the back of my mind. Later when my mom got home and I told both my parents what happened, they brushed it off and thought I was just imagining things. The second time is actually what I'm writing this post on. It happened in November of last year, but in between moving and settling in, finding a new job, my grandmother's declining health, and how scared fleebless my mom was, now has been the only time I've gotten to keep calm and tell the story of my second encounter with what I now refer to as the mimic. This new house we moved to was built literally a month before we moved in, with the neighborhood still under construction. My mom and I were sitting in the family room giving each other pedicures. My stepfather had gone out with my grandfather to run some errands. We were watching something on Netflix when we both heard my stepdad come in through the front door. My mom called out to him, "Are you okay?" To which we both heard him respond, "Yeah honey, I'm good." We heard him open the garage door and go in, obviously thought nothing of it. 20 minutes pass, and we both nearly jump out of our skins when my grandfather opens the backyard door in the family room, peeks his head in, and asks us to open the garage when we had a chance so they could unload the groceries. My mom and I look at each other, again, confused as it seems to be an ongoing theme, and she tells him, "Isn't it open? My husband just came in." We both look at each other and she starts calling out to him, but my grandfather cuts her off and tells her that's impossible because my stepdad was out back. We go out to look and there, getting out of his car, was my stepdad. I look at my mom to see she has the same petrified look on her face. My stepdad, still getting out of the car, not looking at us, goes, "Sorry guys, I left the house key by accident. Can you open the garage door so we can unload the groceries?" My mom takes off inside with me trailing behind her, and lo and behold, the lock on the front door was still on, and the garage door was still locked as well. Guys, I can't even explain how terrifying that was for my mom and I. We don't speak of it. That day my parents fought for hours, my mom thinking it was my stepdad playing some kind of prank on her, but that clearly was not the case. Later that night, when my mom was alone, I approached her and I asked what she thought about what happened. My mom looked at me very sharply, looked me dead in the eye and said, "Don't ever talk about this again. Don't." I didn't think to connect the two experiences till now. I lived on an island which paranormal activities seems like the norm. I've seen and encountered numerous spirits, and the only thing that got me scared is the thing mimicking voices. It can mimic any voices, whether it's humans or animals. The older people believed it's a demon that goes around at night and try to lure anyone into the darkness. The first time it happened to me was when I was 12 years old. My friends and I were playing in the woods when we heard an old lady crying and whimpering. We just laughed it off and kept playing. It was getting darker and darker as the crying got closer and louder, and that's when we start cursing and throwing rocks to the direction it was coming from. We all thought that someone was playing a prank on us. The crying stopped, and then we all heard a man's voice calling us for help. We decided to go and see who's calling for help. The closer we get to the voice, the further it takes us into the woods. As we walked towards it, I remembered what my grandfather told me. He told me to never follow or trust any voices of anyone I can't physically see. Without taking a single step, I stopped and told my friends that it's not a good idea, especially when it's already getting dark. While we were arguing, we heard a baby crying really loud and getting closer to us. That's when we just took off running. The baby's cry was getting closer and closer, and it stopped as soon as we made it out of the woods. We were all scared and out of breath. We looked back and we didn't see anything, but each of our names were being called out one by one. It was mimicking the voices of someone we each knew to lure us back into the woods. We never went back to the woods again, but every night, we still hear our names getting called out in the darkness. Most recently, last night, I was accidentally locked out of my apartment. My first thought was that this was due to a misunderstanding. I live with my little sister, and she probably thought I was asleep in my room before she locked the deadbolt and put the bar down that keeps the door shut in case someone tried to kick it in. Both of us had company over, and I was taking my boyfriend back to his apartment down the street. We left pretty late, and when I came back alone, I found that I couldn't open the door, even though I had unlocked the lock from the outside. I knocked pretty hard on the door, but it was close to 3 a.m., and I didn't want to wake my neighbors up. My sister wouldn't answer calls or texts. My best move was to head to my boyfriend's to pass the time until I could come back with the sun being up. When we came back at about 8 a.m., she still wasn't answering her phone. My boyfriend then climbed the balcony and was able to get in through the patio door. Thank God it was actually unlocked. He let me in after unlocking the deadbolt and moving the kick bar, and we passed out in my room for several hours. I texted my sister when I woke up to ask why she locked me out, and she told me that when she was walking her friend out to the door, right by my bedroom door, she checked to make sure I was there. I was confused because by this time I had left with my boyfriend. She said that she called out and asked if I was there, and she heard my voice answer back, "Yes, I'm in." As in for the night. I don't typically speak like this, I usually just say, "Yeah, I'm here," in response. She heard that confirmation and then let her friend out and locked the keyed lock, the deadbolt, and put down the kick bar. Strangely enough, her friend also heard a man's voice in the room very briefly, which they assumed was my boyfriend. The other time, my sister and I had a similar encounter that was at the house we last lived in. I was downstairs when she asked through my upstairs bedroom door if I wanted to come have food with her. She heard a laugh and, "You're funny," in my voice, muffled through the door of course, but she thought it was me. She dismissed it as me being on the phone or in a weird mood. Within about a minute of that happening, I called up the stairway to her and she poked her head down. She was very shocked to see me at the bottom since she didn't hear me open my bedroom door or walk by her room. She explained that she thought I was in my room just now, but I told her I had been downstairs for about half an hour cooking. I remember feeling a little creeped out, but decided if I stressed over it, I would just make things worse. I resolved to myself that realistically, there isn't much I can do either way. We have had past creepy or hard to explain experiences in that last house before while we were growing up. Objects moving places unexplainably. A piano that made a single note play. My sister actually saw things in her room and heard her voice called out. I'm starting to wonder if whatever this is has followed us to our new apartment. A side note, when we first moved our stuff into this new place, I would often feel like someone was standing a couple feet to my side in my peripheral vision. I would turn and say hi, because I kept thinking it was my boyfriend or sister, but of course, nothing was there. In all honesty, I don't feel any intense fear from these experiences. I'm more worried for my sister's sake. She gets more anxious when these things occur. I tend to go the ignore it, and it'll ignore you route. Okay, so I know Skinwalker stories are incredibly cliched. You know, with all those green text stories, it's a surprise that skinwalkers are still considered a myth, despite the fact that everyone and their mother have encountered one. I'm only saying this is a skinwalker experience because I can't think of another creature that fits the description. So here we go. A while ago when I was in early high school, I was left alone at home for some reason. I can't remember the reason, but I was left home alone a lot after reaching my teenage years. So a little info on my house is that although I don't live in a rural area, I certainly wouldn't call the area civilized. There are barns within walking distance of my house. I guess the area is developing because there are also subdivisions around. Also, my house has a sliding glass door that leads to a deck in the back. So I was home alone when I heard a knock at the door. It's common for my parents to sometimes leave the house without their house keys, so sometimes I would have to let them in when they got back. My family has a special knock that we use so whoever's inside knows that it's one of us. This knock didn't sound like one my family would use, so I just ignored it because I didn't want to deal with some stranger at the door. Whoever it was knocked again in a more familiar pattern, so I reluctantly went to the door. When I got there, I didn't notice anyone out front. I figured that whoever it was just left because I took my sweet time getting to the door. Then I guess I heard a sound or something coming from the back sliding glass door. Another thing members of my family do is if no one answers the door, they'll try to find another way in, such as the back door. So I went to the back door and didn't notice anyone outside. I slightly opened the sliding door and heard a voice. It sounded like my mother coming from underneath the deck, I guess. I only say this because I definitely heard that voice, but my mother wasn't in view of me. I can't exactly remember what the voice said, but it was something like, "Open the door," and it said my name. Now I'm a super paranoid guy, and I know my mom wouldn't be hiding if she wanted to come inside, so I shut the door, pulled the blinds over, and went to my room. Hours later and my mom actually shows up and I tell her what happened. She confirmed that she was not at the house earlier and did not try to get me to open the back door. So for years, I didn't really know what to make of this experience. It was a very minor thing, but it spooked the heck out of me. I say this was probably a skinwalker because I don't know any other paranormal entities that would mimic a person's voice to try to get inside your house.